In the world of anime and manga, have you ever wondered why some anime adaptations of manga always struggle to recreate the unique charm of the original manga? Anime and manga, through both relying on visual elements to tell stories, have their own unique characteristics. Manga, with its original tracking back to 18th century Japanese picture books. The screen tones add depth to the work by creating realistic shading effects and rich texture through different densities. Line works shape objects and conveys different material textures by varying density and direction of the lines, while the using of blacking acts as a spotlight to draw the reader's attention to their key elements. The animation industry has seen a significant evolution from traditional hand drawing to digital production. As Furnace pointed out, the industrialization of animation since the 1990s has sidelined many handcraft techniques. The pursuit of refinement often overshadows stylistic diversity, especially in modern commercial 2D animation. Modern animations sometimes focus too much on flashy special effects, while ignore the story depth and emotional expression of the artist. One of the main obstacles to manga adaptation is pacing control. Manga skillfully utilize panel size to control pacing. Larger panels cause readers to slow down their reading speed, while the smaller panels do the opposite. In anime, a misinterpretation of this pacing can disrupt the original flow of the story. In addition, hand-drawn textures and techniques in manga carry the unique style of the artist, the essence which is often lost in digital animation production. While digital tools increase efficiency, they can also make the animation look too formulaic. Yet there are still beacons of hope. The animated adaptation of Look Back deliberately preserved the manga's raw and polished lines, including messy hair and imperfect shapes. This detail makes character more authentic, embodying McCloud's idea that even errors can be a part of storytelling. Pop which is not boring takes the further by using expressive scribbles and shading as dynamic tools for creating shadows and textures. These seemingly messy lines make up the material of many of the objects, and the black and white image reinforce the visual perception. This work demonstrates the potential of blending manga techniques with animation, offering new directions and further adaptations. However, even though some animations have begun the attempt to draw the techniques of manga nowadays, there is still a lack of discussion on how to systematically integrate manga techniques into 2D animations. In order to study the balance between manga and animations, I've created Within the Canvas, a 2D animation which used the theme of color loss and self-reconstruction to tell the story of a painter who falls into the world of her own paintings, confirms the monster under her brush, and recovers her self-confidence. In researching manga techniques, I referred to McCloud's dissection of the visual language of comics in understanding comics. In applying the screen tones techniques, relevant research into the method of making comics is drawn upon in an attempt to apply the traditional comics dotting to animation. The core of this story is to present the psychological growth of the character through the transformation of visual language, and the use of manga techniques is the key to achieve this goal. The first is the practice of dynamic transition of manga techniques. Screen tones are an important means of shading light, shadow, and texture in manga. This method was also used in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, but its use of screen tones was not adjusted to characters' emotion and plot, so I tried to use them to express special levels and emotional changes. When the protagonist first entered the canvas world, I covered her whole body with high-density screen tones, and the background object was filled in screen tones of different densities, thus constructing a planarized space with the manga style, so that the viewers can feel at a glance that this is a non-real world. As the plot develops and the protagonist gradually accepts herself, the density of screen tones on her body decreased from 90% to 30%, while the density of dots in the background increased. This construct is like a visual cue, reflecting the character's psychological change from confused to clarity. In terms of lines, I distinguish between character lines and scene lines. For the main character in the real world, I devised her with smooth vector lines of even thickness. When she entered to the canvas world, the lines of background became the texture of hand-drawing pencils. retaining the imperfections such as crawl and raw lines, and the thickness of the line varied with the amplitude of the action. For example, during the chase by the monster, the limb dynamic lines are thickened and speed lines are added to intensify the tension. In terms of material presentation, I scanned the texture of watercolor paper as the background, and there are many cases of using watercolor paper in animations such as ping pong and Tycoon King Crate. However, the overall control of the style of the picture was the focus on the study with drawing within the canvas. Therefore, the texture and trains of pencil draft were also retained to make the animation more cartoonish. However, the manga technique is still somewhat restrictive, and the use of rough and irregular lines is still something to be considered in commercial 2D animation, most of which will use this method in specific segments and frames to emphasize the expression of their mood. Nonetheless, there is enough to prove that there is a place for manga techniques to be used in 2D animation. Demonstrating these techniques with animation allows viewer to fully experience the new style brought about by the fusion of the two, bridging new potential for the expression of visual effects and narrative style, as well as providing animators with a more convenient and varied way to do so.